Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Murasso. This is Myth or Logic Radio. Welcome to another show. And, well, I'm real excited. We've got a wonderful guest tonight. I read her book, I guess it was back in April or May, and I said, boy, this gal has got it together. I love the way she writes. I love her the way she thinks. And her name is Mary LaBay. She has authored 6 books on hypnotherapy, self-hypnosis, past life regression, developing personal philosophy, and relationships. She's got a doctorate in behavioral psychology, and she's also the founder of Awareness Engineering, an approved provider of continuing education for mental health counselors. Between travels to destinations around the world, she offers workshops, personal discovery retreats, and certification courses in hypnotherapy, strategies of personal philosophy, and intuition-enhancing techniques. That sounds pretty interesting. She's been named among the top 100 thought leaders by Personal Excellence magazine, and Dr. LaBay maintains a private hypnotherapy practice in Bellevue, Washington, and is a frequent radio guest and is widely published in magazines across the country. So I am honored to have Mary Lee with us tonight. Mary, are you there?
I am here. Hello, how are you?
All right. I am doing great. I hope you're doing great as well.
I am, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much, Tom.
Well, I'm excited to have you. Like I said, I did read one of your books. I guess it was back in April, and I was just so astounded at how close our philosophies were with everything. And I said, well, I really have to get Mary Lee on the show. So, so after reading your bio here, you've got 6 books. I've got 5 more I've got to get, don't I?
Yeah, you're going to be busy. Yeah.
The one I read was on past life regression,
right.
And I'm really fascinated with that. And, a lot of people say, well, why should we even explore past lives? And I figured you might as well be the one to answer that one, huh?
How would I answer it?
Yeah. Why should we explore past lives?
Why? Oh, it's fun just to find out who we were in another lifetime. So that's just kind of the basics and where my level of interest when I first got started. But over the years of working with people and, expanding my own education, I have found that we can go in and we can discover our purpose in life. We can discover why we have certain behavior characteristics, phobias, patterns, why we choose certain things to be in our lives, why we are repulsed by other things. Oftentimes we can find roots to diseases, syndromes, health problems that are rooted in other lifetimes. And beyond that, when we're working on past life regressions, when we're doing our own regressions, we're actually solidifying our consciousness and expanding it. So, I mean, the ongoing benefit of that is, expansion of consciousness. It's furthering your life in the big picture.
Okay, can you expound on that just a little bit?
Okay.
when you say expanding your consciousness, like excuse me, I'm having a little throat thing. There's a lot of schools of thought that, like we're this one big oversoul, and fragments of our soul are living these different lives.
Okay.
Is that what you mean?
Well, yes, similar to that, but what I'm really referring to is more of the concept of, just in the same way that our muscles will atrophy without being used. If we don't go to the gym or we don't get out of the chair and move around, our muscles will atrophy. In the same way, if we don't use our consciousness, which includes our memory and our imagination and our intelligence, it too will atrophy. And so, we'll see that on the brain level. If we don't use our brain, it will atrophy. All those little connections will disappear and fail to operate. But on the bigger level of our consciousness, if we don't, let's just say it's important to continue to visit our memories and to incorporate memories of other lifetimes or of all of or as many experiences as we can into our conscious knowledge base. In other words, say we had a lifetime and we spent it learning all about herbs and how to use herbs for healing, and we were, a person was a master healer. They come into a new life and they aren't carrying that information in their conscious mind. So during their lifetime, they have to go back and learn all of that information over again. So if we go through past life regression, if we go back to those lifetimes and recapture the pathway to those memories of those experiences and that knowledge base, we can bypass having to go back to school and study for another 5 or 10 years, because we can open up the memory bank to that whole wealth of information that we've already studied and gained in another lifetime. And so in doing that broadens the, first of all, the access to the experiences and knowledge that is housed in our consciousness. But in doing that, it also exercises that muscle, and so it keeps it from atrophying, and in various ways actually expands that consciousness. So does that make a little more sense in that explanation? Absolutely.
So you brought up an interesting point. And using your example of somebody that had studied herbs to heal, let's say that you access this past life where you were a healer, herbologist, whatever. Mm-hmm. Are you saying that you could regain all that information and just go out and start healing again? I mean, is it something as simple as that?
I don't know about the legalities or the ethics of going out and healing again. So, you have a license to practice, but I have worked with people who have actually accessed those exact same kinds of memories. So I'm actually giving you an example of a client I've worked with.
Okay.
Who perhaps in her case, she works at a school that teaches that. She's at a pretty high level in that university of teaching naturopathic medicines, and she wanted to understand, the draw to that and why she loves, being in her garden and all of that. And we were able to access a lifetime where she was very, very fluent. In fact, she was able to go into a garden or a wild, place where there's lots of plants and be able to communicate it at a very profound level, communicate with those plants, and simply by looking at them or touching them, she would understand which parts of the plant needed to be harvested at a certain time in the season, what the uses were, and it was almost like she was fully communicating with the consciousness of that plant. And it was a spectacular vision for her and a spectacular awakening for her. And we spent, quite a bit of time, a good deal of maybe 2 hours of her exploring in her imagination, but exploring in that past life various different plants and how she would use them in this other lifetime when she was so fully connected. And so she could bring that into her consciousness, and she told me about all sorts of ways that she could now incorporate that type of wisdom and knowledge and experience into how she taught, how she used her own herbs. Can you hear?
Okay, Mary, I'm sorry I got hung up on.
Yeah, well, I was talking away and I didn't hear a response from you, so I decided I better call back in.
Okay, I apologize for that. I mean, it's the miracle of technology. So let's just continue. I bet you I missed a really good part there. Okay.
Okay. So what did you hear? Because I had a good long explanation.
I got right up to about the 2-hour session you had with your client, and where she was exploring working with her clients in that past life, and it just sounded fascinating. And now, was she able to bring that in into the present life? I mean, that kind of knowledge.
Right. So when she comes out of the hypnotherapy in the past life, she can remember everything that she experienced in that past life. So it brings that memory closer to conscious awareness, and certainly very aware, consciously aware of everything that she experienced in that, during the regression. She'll remember all of that.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, and what was exciting for her, and I mean, I can't even tell you how ecstatic she was, because she's so involved with herbs and healing, and to bring, to touch or remember that connection that she had with the plants, and that ability to just look at the plants and almost like they were offering the information, like, take me and cut off this blossom now, or, use the stems later, or, you'll want to boil the roots. I mean, there was a real full communication, and she was so excited because we weren't able to verify during the session, but she said her goal was to be able to go into her own garden in this lifetime and be able to recollect that kind of communication, and to be able to re-enhance it so that she could use that in this life. And certainly the knowledge that she gained by viewing the past life, she would be able to incorporate that into her work now.
Okay, so naturally, the next question that arises is, why didn't she remember all of this anyway? Why don't people remember their past lives?
Right. Well, there's a lot of reasons why we don't remember, and one of them is just the trauma of birth. So we come through the birth canal, and it's traumatic, and then there's lights, and it's cold, and you're wet, and all of that. And then over the first few months, there's all the learning, and the visual learning and the physical learning, and then over the first couple of years there's learning to walk, and there's siblings perhaps, and just all of the mechanics of working a physical body. And by the time that we're able to even communicate, because some babies do come in and remember, but by the time we communicate, oftentimes the parents, you're telling these stories, and the parents are just, that's a cute little story, run along now.
That's just your imagination. No.
Right. Yeah, that's not real, but it's a cute story, honey. Thank you. But and then beyond that, there are a lot of memories that we have in this life or a previous life that we want to forget. The things that we regret saying, the things, bad relationships, painful losses of some sort. And many times when we die, we just kind of blank that information out, and we separate ourselves from that because we want, how many times have you heard somebody say, well, at least when I die, I can start over, or maybe somebody who's, in pain or, emotional pain, and, I just want to end it so I can start over fresh.
Right.
And so, there's a part of us that does that. So there is, a part of us that willfully will forget parts of our lifetimes or the lifetimes. And then there's the part that, of us that being born, even if we're trying to remember, we just don't know how to remember, or we haven't connected with that.